Evening, Leading Through Sustainability. My name is Susie Cohen Crumpler, and I am the Executive Director of the Cal Alumni Association, CAA. I'm so excited to be here this evening, where we will bring together two amazing Cal women, Jodi Russell and Janet Brady, in a discussion about a very important topic, sustainability. Tonight's discussion is the first in a new series that will be offered by CAA. The Innovators Series connects alumni with UC Berkeley's contributions to shaping the future of our world. I would like to thank the sponsor of tonight's event, Clorox, the official cleaning and disinfectant product partner of UC Berkeley. Together, through this partnership, UC Berkeley and Clorox are working together to help create a healthier campus. In this inaugural program, we present a conversation with Cal alum Jodi Russell, class of '96, Vice President R&D Cleaning and Professional Products at Clorox, and Janet Brady, lecturer at the UC Berkeley Haas School of Business. Janet received both her undergraduate degree in business administration and her MBA from Berkeley's Haas School of Business. I am thrilled to introduce Jodi Russell, a leader in eco-friendly packaging design. In her 22-year history in the consumer packaging sector, Jodi has emerged as a leader in Clorox's corporate packaging sustainability agenda. Her proven track record of driving growth across multiple categories includes a current R&D responsibility for a product portfolio worth more than $2 billion. I am also honored to introduce our moderator for the evening, Janet Brady. Janet spent 27 years at the Clorox company as Chief Marketing Officer and Chief Human Resources Officer, and held various positions in brand management and human resources. Janet is now a lecturer and distinguished teaching fellow at the Haas School of Business. I would now like to turn it over to Janet. Janet and Jodi, thank you so much for being part of our program this evening. Welcome, and go Bears.
Thank you so much, Susie, for the nice introductions. So it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Jodi Russell. Now, as VP of Research and Development, she is doing amazing things and blazing trails. But one of the things she's probably most known for now is she is a true change maker in the area of sustainability. So I thought we would go back to where it all started, and we talked to Jodi about her time at Berkeley. So first off, what made you think that Berkeley was going to be a good fit for you? And then why did you pick engineering?
Yeah, no, so first of all, thank you for having me. What an honor to be the first in this new series about innovators and talking about a subject that I'm extremely passionate about, and that's sustainability and making our world a more sustainable place for the future. So thank you for having me. So yeah, as I look back, I have always loved science and math, was attracted to when I was a little girl. My grandfather was actually a business owner. He had his own electroplating shop. So I was, as a very young little girl, was exposed to how do you coat metals and how do you learn about anodes and cathodes and electrolyte solutions. My grandfather was a tinkerer. He solved problems, whether it was at work in his business or around the house, and I would follow him around and would want to solve problems with him and always learning why. He always said, my biggest question was why? And so that curiosity he really fostered in me as a young girl. And that's really what attracted me to Cal. I wanted to be among those minds that were curious and really would look at the deeper whys and solve problems. And so I really early on made Cal my target school. When I was in high school, I did everything I could to make sure that I was the right candidate as I put my application in, and I was thrilled to be accepted as a chemical engineer in the College of Chemistry.
That's awesome. So here you are now, armed with a degree from Cal in engineering, a young woman. The world is your oyster. How did your career path progress and you ended up at Clorox?
Yeah, it wasn't a direct path. One of the things that Cal did so well for me, and I know does well for many of its students, is help us get internships to try what the work world is like and to try out different industries. And for me, I had 2 internships. One was in oil, so really looking at a career that would be in energy, and the next generations of energy. And then I did another internship in chemicals, and actually in a manufacturing location, and creating kind of the next generation of chemistry. And neither one of them were a good fit. I can tell you, I was longing to do more what I would say is practical problem solving in everyday life. And I was really attracted to consumer packaged goods because of how tangible the problems were that we were solving everyday problems in someone's kitchen, in someone's bathroom, in someone's garage, when someone's on the go. And so I found myself being attracted to consumer packaged goods. And because not only could I solve the everyday problems I watched my grandfather solve, but also I enjoyed being in the home setting and watching consumers. And I've always found that engineers really are at our best, and R&Ders in particular, we're at our best when we're observing things, when we're in situations where we can see a problem happening. And sometimes consumers can't even articulate what the problem is, but you can see their frustration, or you can see the workarounds that they're having to do. Those are obvious parts and points that we can then go in and innovate. And I was attracted to that. The other thing that I love about consumer packaged goods and why I ended up in this industry is because consumers are demanding. If we stand still and we don't continue to innovate, they will leave us behind and go and buy a competitive product. And so I liked that idea of never settling for the status quo, always looking for new solutions and really pushing technology forward to solve everyday problems. And so that is why I landed in consumer packaged goods, and I've been here my entire career.
That's fantastic. And congratulations.
Thank you.
So Susie mentioned the great partnership now that Clorox and UC Berkeley have, where Clorox is the official cleaning and disinfectant product for Cal. How, as an alum, how does that make you feel?
Fabulous. I have to say this was probably the partnership I was the most excited about, and that my group was going to get to directly support it. To be able to be the group that really champions this cleaner world where people can thrive. I mean, that is what we do every day at Clorox, and to be able to actually support the health and well-being of the entire UC Berkeley campus community has really been a thrill, and I'm very proud of it.
Thank you. So let's turn to sustainability, which I know is your sweet spot. Can you tell us in broad strokes how Clorox is approaching sustainability?
Yeah, it's really a strong focus for us strategically. So our ESG goals, which include sustainability, is integrated into our overall Clorox business strategy. We really recognize that there's a strategic link not only between the societal impact that we are making, but on long-term value creation. So that's why it's so important that it's embedded into our strategy. So what we see is when we are strong in our environmental, social governance, which includes sustainability, we have stronger teams, we have stronger stakeholder relationships, and ultimately we're able to innovate our products and make our portfolio something that consumers are going to prefer long term. So that's why we have the focus.
Yeah.
Oh, Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was getting some feedback. So ultimately, that's why we have the focus on sustainability from the top down. It doesn't stop there, though. This is where it's not just about something that our executives talk about. It is something that we have pushed into every single business unit so that it becomes part of our business strategies and into our groups and the culture of how we do our work. So for instance, in research and development, we have very strong goals about how we're designing in for more sustainable packaging. So in particular, one of our signature goals as a company is to reduce our virgin packaging by 60% by 2030. So that's a very audacious goal. If you think about the amount of resin, fiber that we use to make things like our bleach products and to ship them around the world, there's a lot of packaging that we use. And so to reduce by 60%, you can't just make small changes. You have to make big changes. And the things that really inspired us when we set these lofty, big goals was really starting with the waste pyramid, and that we really want to do things that will encourage reuse, right? Encouraging recycling, encouraging people to keep the things that they have today and to reuse them over and over and over again. And so you'll see that in the way we do our product development is we are designing in using less material, designing in reusability, and designing in recyclability.
So how did you come up with a goal like 60%? That sounds like a stretch goal. Did you look at what your competition's doing? Did you say, hey, this is what's right for us? Or how did you come up with that?
So as a company, it's 50% overall. For the cleaning division, it's 60%. So I should be make that very clear. The 50% goal, it really puts us in the top third of our peer group, which is really where Clorox has committed to be. So going back to our belief that we champion people to be well and thrive every day, and people can't thrive if they're not healthy and the planet isn't healthy. And so really committing to staying in the top third of our peer group and really built on 3 pillars: healthy lives, clean world, and thriving communities. And as we looked across our peer set, for us to be in that top third in packaging, we needed to have big audacious goals, like reducing as a company 50% of our virgin packaging, and in our cleaning division, which is what I lead, being even further than that.
How do your vendors respond to that when you say, hey, guess what? We're going to reduce our packaging, or we're going to reduce the things that we buy from you?
Yeah, what I would say is the industry recognizes that we all have a responsibility to innovate into the future. And what I would say is, for the most part, our suppliers understand, and they're on the innovation journey with us. So for instance, in creating materials that are lighter but stronger at the same time, that's how we're going to reduce the amount of material that we use. So we're working hand in hand with our suppliers to create those materials. And to prove them out that they work in our products and can withstand things like the supply chains and making sure they're strong enough to deliver the same consumer experience that we've always promised. But it's going to take an industry effort as an example. So it's a great point, Janet. We need all on board, including our suppliers. They're going to be keys to the innovation and the breakthrough.
So can you give us some examples, real life examples that we as consumers would recognize?
Yeah, so go ahead, Eric, and if you put up my slides so people can see an example. There's 2 examples actually I'm going to highlight. And both of these are in the market now. These are coming out of our cleaning division. The first one on the left is our disinfecting mist that just launched over the last couple of months. And you can see it's one step in kind of helping consumers learn to reuse their sprayer. So what they're going to see on market is a ready-to-use disinfecting mist, and then refills that all you need to do is keep your sprayer and purchase the refill and use the sprayer over and over and over again. So you can see the behavior that we're asking consumers to do is just one small step: keep the sprayer, buy the refills, and then we incent the refill purchase by making it slightly cheaper. The other example that I've got on here is also launched within the last few months and is really available mostly on e-com, so our e-commerce platform. And this is a spray that is concentrated. So one more step in the consumer behavior change in asking consumers now keep the sprayer and the bottle and just buy these concentrated refills. You need to fill your bottle with water and then use the concentrated refill to make your cleaner, and then replace the sprayer and you're ready to go. This is perfect for e-commerce because it's easier to ship. The concentrated refills, cheaper to ship, much better experience for consumers too. They don't have to worry about leaking, for instance, through the mail. And it's a huge sustainability win. You can see it's 80% less plastic because now you're keeping both the sprayer and the bottle. So one more step in consumer behavior change, keep the whole thing. You do have to refill with water. But what we're seeing is these small steps in helping change consumer behavior. These are the ways that we're going to encourage consumers to come along with us in the sustainability journey to use less plastic, use less packaging material.
Can you share with us what kind of testing goes into coming up with products like this?
A lot. That's a loaded question, Janet. I would say probably the most important is that consumer behavior change. Because what we see in general is consumers really, they don't want to add steps to their routine. So a lot of the work that goes into this is how do we create forms that really create a great experience, especially in those extra steps that we're asking consumers to make. And make it easy, make it intuitive, and make sure that they see this as a value add as they are doing what's right for our planet. And what we've seen is if we create the right experience, consumers will come along with us.
That's great. So any ahas moments as you're going through that process, any big learnings that came out of it through consumers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be a slow journey, slower than I would want. What we find is changing behavior is hard. And it's not something that consumers are readily looking to do. Most people are not. And so there's a couple of things that are really important. As we become more sustainable, we are challenging our industry to go along too. Why can't we concentrate all sprays? They don't necessarily have to look like the ones that Clorox has created, but if we all move to concentrated kinds of forms, then consumers will come along with us, right? Because there aren't any non-concentrated sprays available. And so as an industry, really pushing for everyone to join us in this journey and using our industry groups as a great place really to push that agenda forward. And also our retailers are great influencers too, as they really stock more concentrated things. As an example, stock more products that are more sustainable. They will help our consumers also make those more sustainable choices, even if they are an extra step. So that's really, for me, that what it's going to take. And really the challenge for this next generation, especially for those of you students on the call today, we're really hoping that the next generation is the one that won't have to be convinced that filling a bottle with water, right, is worth it. That really you guys will be the ones demanding that companies like Clorox, have these more sustainable options. And so then it won't be something we have to force and push, but that it will be a pull from the next generation. But that's probably the biggest barrier that I see, is that consumer behavior change.
Any other challenges besides consumer behavior?
I mean, I think the biggest, and I didn't mention our some of our other approaches are to increase recycled content. So that's another way that we reduce the amount of virgin material that we're using. And the supply out there, just is extremely limited. And it goes back to the recycling infrastructure that's really lacking, and the consumer behavior really lagging in just recycling our plastics. Less than 10% of plastics, get recycled and ultimately make it back into the reuse stream. And so that makes it hard for manufacturers like Clorox to put more recycled content into our packages and use less first-time petroleum-based materials, because the availability of those recycled materials are just not there. So this is something as an industry we have to solve. How do we really help push for more supply and ultimately continue to push on consumer behavior to recycle and to make sure that the infrastructure is there to collect the materials. So that's the other big barrier, Janet, that I see that as an industry we're all dealing with.
I am a huge fan of the Clorox bleach crystals. I hope they don't go away because I love them.
Love it. Bleach crystals are much more sustainable. They are a no water solution for bleach. So it's a great one as a sustainability purchase, a really good one that I highly encourage.
Oh, good. Because I love it. So you talked about some challenges, kind of external challenges, but what about internally? How do you get that mindset to your employees?
Yeah. So what I see is the grassroots effort is palpable. I mean, the passion that our employees bring to this subject, I really can't represent well. What I find is it's really our employees that are pushing hard for us to find solutions and are bringing the creativity to all of their projects. And what I see is that passion, even things as simple as we have grassroots efforts within our employee base just to make our behaviors at our site, at our technical center, more sustainable. So how do we make sure that we're using all of our materials and not wasting things? So what I see is the passion behind sustainability and believing in it's our responsibility to make sure that we are leaving behind a healthy planet is something our employees already have. And so we're just giving them opportunities really to exercise that passion and to really make a difference in not only the way Clorox does business, but then ultimately in the impact that we can make for consumers.
That's great, because you hear so often about companies that are greenwashing, where they talk the talk but don't walk the walk. It's great that you're making sure that this is top down in an organization, and that's so exciting to see.
Well, and if I highlight some of our other goals, because it's not just packaging. So we're committed to net zero emissions by 2050. So this is something that we are committed to as a company with science-based targets, and to making sure that we are making progress quickly with drastic reductions by 2030. So it's really at the heart as a health and wellness company. We know that long-term well-being of our future generations depends on the action we take now. So that's just another example of where Clorox is committed, and we're already making progress with zero waste to landfill in our plants and also using renewable energy.
That's great. That's really exciting. We do so much of that at Cal nowadays. Sometimes I laugh because seems like there's 12 trash cans outside your door. And you got to stop and think, okay, what's the right thing here? And then when you go to other places that don't have that, it really makes you mad, because Cal is so sustainability oriented. Okay, can we switch a little bit to you personally and ask a couple of questions? So engineering is not a female dominated industry. So how is it like to be a female and a female executive in a male dominated field?
I would say it's different now than it was in 1996. So I definitely experienced that male dominated culture when I first came out of school. In fact, one story that I like to tell, I was a young engineer in a room. I looked around the table and there were 20 men and little me. I felt little at the time. I was young and first real job. And I felt very much like a minority, like a fish out of water. But it's very different today. And specifically in the company that I chose to work for, this now being my 20th year at Clorox, if I look around in R&D, over half of research and development at Clorox are females. And to have that many talented women around me, our Chief Innovation Officer, Denise Garner, an amazing leader. If I look at Clorox just holistically, our executive committee is half women. Our Chief Executive Officer is also a woman. Linda Rendell's an amazing leader. So I'm in a company where I'm not a minority, and really the capability and the talents that I bring, it really, there's nothing that holds back my ability to, to give my full self. And that's one of the reasons why I've stayed at Clorox for so long. We talk about, really being human-centered. And that's whether we're serving consumers or we are living in our day-to-day work lives and the way we take care of our employees. And I feel that human-centered. I bring my authentic self to work every day and have been able to, really thrive. But back to that story of the one female, in the room of 20 men, one of the folks that was with me was really an advocate for me. Because there was a supplier that was asking questions and was working on the project with us. And this particular supplier, they would not address me. They would always address the gentleman that I worked with. And he was an advocate, and he would just smile and he'd look at me and he'd say, Jodi, this one's yours. Yeah, Joe, you have to talk to Jodi. And over time, it took, some time, but over time, the supplier learned that no, they had to work with me. Like I was the lead engineer. And so what I really found is not only picking a culture where there are a lot of women and women, are, really equal in the work that we do, but also having advocates, people when there are situations where we are either challenged or we are not given the same opportunity. Having advocates around me has really made sure that my competence, my ability can shine and that I'm given a chance. One of the other things that has really stuck with me, I had the chance to spend some time in Washington, D.C., and I went to several places, Library of Congress, and got to see some exhibits just about, our history. And one of them that I didn't realize how it was going to hit me so hard, but it was really about the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s women's movement. And some of the women that really led the charge in creating opportunities and equality for the rest of us. And I bawled. And I'm like, why is this hitting me so hard? And it's because I really see they were the pioneers that really laid the foundation that I am now benefiting from. And so that's, as I look at my role, is making it even easier for the women to come behind me so that they don't have any barriers, and that I'm an advocate to make sure that their abilities really shine through and that they have the opportunities even more that I've had.
That's fantastic. I had some crazy stories when I was working there way back when. The same thing, there were no women in the marketing department. And we had some funny conversations when dealing with vendors who would always look to the man to answer the questions, and then they'd be hemming and hawing, but got it worked out. So these changes that you see, the environment that you see, is this something that just happens organically, or is Clorox doing things to support women and minorities, or how does it work?
So this is real commitment to inclusion and diversity. And I think that's why I can brag so much about Clorox and the culture that I work in, because it shows the commitment. And it's really that, and I mentioned it, that bringing the authentic self and creating a place where people feel and know that they belong. It's one of the reasons I've stayed at Clorox for so long. So it's not something that just happens. It's something that we work at. And our executives have been committed to for years. And so that's why, I can say that I bring the best of me to work every day, and that my abilities really do shine. And I do everything I can to create the same experience for the folks that work with me every day. So it is something we work at. And the commitment also of not just within our own walls, but also making sure that we are doing things to encourage, for instance, females to go into STEM. So I have a lot of folks on our R&D team that spend time doing science education, as an example, working with local schools, nonprofits, really just helping young children, including all the way up to high school, really just understand what it's like to work in a STEM field. I find young girls in particular, they just can't imagine, what does a scientist do? What does a chemical engineer do? So we bring them into our labs and we do science experiments and we show them, fun ways of how we study consumer products and how we have a toilet rig that looks at toilet cleaning and how do our products work, and just showing them a day in the life of an engineer, and what it takes to design a product, for instance. And what I see is it really inspires them. And so we really encourage our folks to spend the time doing science ed. A story there, I actually have an employee now at Clorox R&D that I was the person that came into her physics class when she was in high school, and I gave a lecture about what it's like to be a chemical engineer and did some demonstrations of what it takes to make a Burt's Bees lip balm. And it really inspired her, and she went into consumer packaged goods, and we hired her when she was finished with her degree at UC Santa Barbara. So it really shows the investment that we make in just making STEM fields more tangible, to young kids, girls in particular. I really see makes a difference, and we're committed to that.
So you've done a heck of a lot in your tenure there. What else do you want to do? What's the footprint you want to leave?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it really is the category transformation that I see that would be legacy building and leaving for me. So as I look at these sustainability projects in particular, so things like our concentrated sprays, really changing that behavior so that ultimately when I finish my career, I can look back at the categories that I've touched and the product portfolios that I've built, and I can say, yes, I've left the planet a better place than when I started. And I really want to be able to say that. I also want to be able to say that the leaders that are coming up behind me, the female leaders that are coming up behind me, that they are going to be able to do even greater things than I have because of the way that I've made it and pave the way easier for them to shine. So those are the things that, that's why this conversation, when I got the questions and what the team wanted to talk about, I was so excited because this is exactly where I would like to, when I finish my career, I'd be able to look back and say, yes, I left the place more sustainable, and I left more opportunities for women than even I had, and make it easier for them.
That's fantastic. So let's switch to a little bit broader topic, which is some advice that you might have for women and minorities who are interested in pursuing a career in STEM and the sciences. Is it?
Oh, did we lose Janet? She's frozen. I think I know where she was going with the question, though. It's the advice I have with folks that are considering a career in sciences, so women and minorities in particular. And the biggest thing I can say is have confidence. In the end, your ability will shine through. And it's really important, like I mentioned, that one gentleman colleague that I had that was an advocate for me when a supplier, a group of people was not treating me as an equal, was not giving me the ability to do, the opportunity to do my job, finding those advocates that will make sure that I have the opportunity. It's the same. You'll need advocates but also pick a supportive environment. And one of the reasons why I, came to Clorox and I have stayed for so long is because of the culture and the environment that I'm in that really gives me the opportunity to shine and to be the best that I can be. And so finding those advocates, finding that supportive environment, that's really important and part of what's going to make you successful. But ultimately have confidence because your ability will shine through. And that's really what I've done and ultimately have been successful. And then my challenge would be to be the change for others as well. So be an advocate. You will need advocates, be an advocate for others.
Thanks so much, Jodi. It looks like Janet will probably join back in a minute. She was frozen and got bumped out. So in the last couple of minutes here, is there anything else that you would like to share regarding your experience and how your Cal education and your experience on campus may have an impact today or throughout your career?
Yeah, Cal encouraged my curiosity and that problem solving. One experience in particular that I just smile at because it was just an amazing opportunity is I was in the one of our chemi labs, and there was a particular distillation column. It was an experiment that we all had to do. That the results were always really tough. Like we got really bad yields, and it was always frustrating for students when it was our turn, right, to deal with this particular experiment. And I asked the professor, I said, could I try some other materials? Like maybe we could get the yields up on this distillation column. We're not going to change the equipment, but maybe within the parameters of what we've got in the lab, we could find a way to make this experiment, less frustrating for students. And my professor said, "Go for it. Let's do it. Like let's make this a project." And so here, just early on in my young engineering career, being encouraged to find problems, everyday problems, and tinker and really go after solutions, and being encouraged to do that. And opportunities. So I look at that fondly. I think that in the end, Cal taught me how to think, how to break down a problem into its building blocks, and then how to build back a solution. And then ultimately really encouraging me never to be satisfied with that status quo, because ultimately that's what I do every day as a leader in R&D. What are those big problems we're going to go solve? Let's not be satisfied with status quo, continuing to drive innovation and solutions for a better future. And I really see how Cal really encouraged that in me. And I'm very proud to represent the university every day.
Oh, that's wonderful, Jodi. Thanks so much. So now let's open it up to the audience. And we've had a couple questions. I think if you'd like to, let's see, we had one in the chat. And this is from Hillary. And Hillary, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
For sure. Hi, Jodi. Thanks. Thank you for all of your time today with talking about your career and your experience in sustainability. So a question that I had for you is, can you tell us more about what does R&D work look like and in the sustainability sector? Do you need to have an engineering background? Like for me, I have a background in environmental science, and I'm interested in going into changing the consumer goods packaging, but I'm not sure what kind of background knowledge I might need. And yeah.
Great question. And Hillary, there's going to be lots of opportunities for anyone who is not only interested in sustainability, but then changing behavior. So materials and the kinds of things that we work with have to evolve. Like I mentioned earlier, we have to create materials that are stronger with less. Perfect example. So material science and really innovation in the materials that we use, how they're constructed, how they're put together, that's going to be an entire generation of work. And then the behavior change side. So the psychology of how do we work with consumers, how do we work with the public, how do we really change that behavior? That's marketing, right? That's the way we communicate in in every aspect, whether it's on the package or it's through our communications online in advertising. So there's going to be everything from material science to how you put things together, which is the engineering, to all the way how we communicate and change behavior. So there's a lot of opportunities. And what I would say is the environmental science and really understanding the impact of the choices that we make is foundational. So what are the things that make a material better or worse? I can tell you one of the biggest things my team does is understands our life cycle, right? So life cycle of products, life cycle of individual materials, choices between this material versus another material. What does that ultimately do then to our footprint as a company? And our footprint, as a product portfolio. So those are good examples of things that R&Ders do. So it's looking for new materials, putting them together in new ways, innovating on the consumer experience to make the steps that we're asking them to take on as seamless and intuitive as possible. And then ultimately really innovating on the kinds of things that we use to make our products. So those are things that R&D in particular does. But I would encourage you, keep looking. The environmental science as a foundational major is a great one, and we'll continue to have lots of opportunities in the field.
Thank you, Hillary. Janet, we are doing some open questions now, and I will turn it back over to you. It looks like we have a question from Anthony. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Hi. I'm a Cal alum and I wasn't a science major, but this talk is really interesting, or it has been really interesting. And I know I took a few science classes in order to graduate on time, like for graduation requirements, but I wasn't a science major. But I guess my question for you is, do you work to handle I heard a lot about sustainability and I'm really into that, but do you work on how to handle sustainability as well as like climate change or something? Because I keep seeing, I don't want to cry about it, but I keep seeing all these pictures of the flooding from like South Africa or something, or the fires from California. And I wish people would understand that climate change is real and sustainability is real, because I don't want to bring politics into it, but I remember when Trump was like, it's all a hoax, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, Anthony, I can tell you that's why the science-based targets are so important to Clorox and why we've signed on to a net zero commitment by 2050. It really is that commitment to understanding what's happening right in our world and having science right be our guide, because ultimately that's what's going to help us make not only better choices but set up a better planet for the future. So I love your passion. I share it. And so that's why I'm working for a company that is going to be part of the change and leading the change for you and me and for the generations to come.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Jodi. So this was a really invigorating discussion and very moving. And I see that our audience really cares about the subject and has really liked having the opportunity to ask you questions. And we really appreciate your openness and honesty. We have one more raised hand. We'll take this last question from Maria, and then we will go into the networking portion of this program. Maria, go ahead.
Awesome. Hi, Jodi. Thanks so much for joining. I know there are a number of Haas students at Clorox interning and who will be there, who are there long term. My question for you is, how you manage the difference between what a consumer wants in theory versus in practice. When I worked at Driscoll's prior to business school, we had this problem all the time where the consumer wanted a plastic container to see their strawberries, but they hate plastic. And it's sort of like you can't really win. So I'm wondering if Clorox has any of those issues.
Oh, it's really hard. Maria, you're absolutely right. And I wish I had a magic solve for it, but I don't. But really it is understanding behavior. And that's because there is a difference between, a lot of times what people say they will do and what they actually do. And that's why I still go back to, we are at our best, especially in R&D. Marketing is similar when we're observing behavior. Right. So we have, for instance, our commitment to human insights and being human and watching the behavior and then working with behavior change. So as I put solution, I watch and I see the problem they have, and I'm putting solutions in their hands, not stopping at claimed. No, really putting things in people's hands and watching, does their behavior change along with it? And then recognizing that it does take time, especially in sustainability, when we're asking, I mean, it feels like a small thing, right? To keep a trigger spray and reuse it feels like a small thing, but that's a big behavior change for a lot of people. And so really making it as seamless as we can. I wish I had a perfect solution, but it goes back to behavior. Don't stop at claimed, what people claim to do, really watching and then putting solutions in their hand and making sure the behavior is coming with it. And if it's not, keep innovating, right? That's why there will always be R&D, right? There's always going to be innovation opportunities as we move people's behavior.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maria. So Jodi and Janet, thank you again so much. We're going to invite everyone to stay for the networking portion of our event, where you'll have the opportunity to ask Jodi and Janet questions, as well as interact with others interested in this topic. So everyone is now going to be placed into one of two breakout rooms for a total of 7 minutes. And then we will switch rooms for another 7 minutes. So thank you all, and go Bears.